In Romans chapter 8, verse 35 to 37, the Apostle Paul, who wrote this chapter, is trying to encourage you, and he tells you, he wants you to know that you are more than a conqueror. This is what the passage says, beginning in verse 35, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Yet, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." So the context of this verse is that Paul is pretty plainly saying that the Christians of that day and Christians of this day in many parts of the world face tremendous tribulation, face distress, face persecution, famine, nakedness, that we live in a broken world. And Jesus himself said, in this world you will have tribulation. And so Paul also quotes an Old Testament passage, "For your sake we are killed all day long, we're accounted as sheep for the slaughter," meaning that God's people in this world are really seen by the forces of darkness as an enemy to be destroyed, really, to be a threat to be eliminated. And so sometimes we may feel like, wow, we're like sheep for the slaughter, like the forces of darkness are just coming at us full force with everything they've got, and that actually may be true. But Paul's answer, he says, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. Jesus is the one who loved us, and we're more than conquerors. And how can you be more than a conqueror? Are you a conqueror, or are you more than a conqueror? Someone explained to me one time that if a fighter, a boxer, goes into the ring and he battles through all of the fight, and in the end he wins the boxing match, he wins the fight, and they hand him the trophy, they hand him the belt, they hand him the crown, whatever he's going to get, and he's the conqueror. But then his wife is standing next to him, and he turns around and he gives her the belt, he gives her the trophy. She is more than a conqueror. So this is maybe a good example that Jesus conquered the world. Jesus conquered Satan, conquered death, conquered sin, conquered everything that was an enemy to us, and then he turns around and he gives us the victory, and he says, here, I won it for you. Take it, make it your own, stand in it, walk in it, live in it, and we are more than conquerors. We didn't win that battle, but Jesus handed us the victory. He gave us authority, he gave us eternal life, he gave us the promise we'll live and reign with him forever. And he also says another thing that is amazing. He said, in that day you will know that I am living inside of you. After Jesus rose from the dead, whoever calls on his name, whoever believes in him, he says, I will come and live in your heart through my Spirit. And so if you follow Jesus, he is living in your heart. The conqueror is living inside of you. And whatever you face, whatever you go through, he's there inside of you, and his nature is still to conquer. His nature is still for victory and for triumph. And he's living inside of you, and he's speaking to you, and there's a call to conquer inside of you. That's the voice of God inside of you. It's the voice of Jesus inside of you. There's something in your heart that is never content with defeat. It is never content with failure. It is never content with compromise, never content with mediocrity. There's a voice inside of your heart and your spirit that is to rise up and walk in his victory and walk in greatness, because that's Jesus inside of you. And he says, whatever you face, I am forming inside of you the nature of a conqueror, the nature of a winner. And listen to me, draw close to me, and you'll hear that voice, and you'll know that nature rising up inside of you. You'll know the call of the conqueror rising up inside of you. That's who you are. That's who you're becoming, because Jesus is living big in you. Whatever you face, you can face it with faith, with confidence, and ultimately with victory, because you are more than a conqueror through Jesus Christ who loved you.